Hey everyone, welcome to this 360 training. It's our entry-level bulldozer training. We've already done our pre-inspection of the machine. We already know walk around. We've also already, we know our site where we're at, so I already have done a pre-site safety inspection. So this one's gonna cover basics. So first things first, we're gonna get in. It's 3 points of contact. There, all the way up. Dozers, they always swing out like this. I generally recommend locking the door open, so if you use that handle. So you're gonna step in. Okay. To latch, there's usually a release up on the right side. So this is where the dozer release is. Swing that door back around. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. We're running a Komatsu D61 dozer today. Turn the ignition on, make sure I got no warning signs, anything like that. Go ahead and start that up. Okay. First things first then, seat belt. Put my lap belt on. Okay. So again, we're in a Komatsu D61. We're doing this training fairly generic in that it really can apply to most machines, most bulldozers. So a lot of the controls are pretty standard. This is a very entry level. We're doing this in a 360 format so you can see exactly what I'm looking at. So this will not be an advanced video. If you're looking for one of those, we have other of those on our channel. So with the bulldozers, the way the setup is, left is normally your driving, right is your blade control. Those are the two joysticks you're gonna have in a bulldozer. The other joystick, usually to the far right, this is the ripper. We don't have a ripper on this machine. It's kind of in the back, a big kind of hook that'll go into the ground. That's how you would control that. And then on my left side is my climate control for the Komatsu here. My display right in front of me. Again, I'm looking at my lighting. Obviously all my indicators are on here, my fuel level, and then in the center of the Komatsu here we got our F and our R, that's our speed control. So again, with our left hand, there's three different speeds, or basically, three different gears, forward, neutral, reverse, and it's just as simple as going one click forward, one click back, one reverse. And then my speed, like I was talking about those, if I click these up or down, you'll see my speed is variable there. Again, different types of manufacturers for dozers operate differently. And then to steer it is just left or right on that left hand. That'll steer the thing. Again, some will twist, some bulldozers will twist, but most of them will just go left and right like that. So that's all my left hand. Right is my blade, and I'm gonna go over all the controls. Most importantly is your parking brake. For the Komatsu dozers, they have these little, similar to the excavators, there's a safety lock lever on both sides for each joystick. Some bulldozers will have a red P, like parking indicator on there. So there's a few different variations. And then finally you got the decelerator pedal. So single pedal, most of the dozers nowadays are single pedal. This basically is a decelerator. It brings the engine down to idle and will stop you. Most bulldozers like that. Some will have a second pedal that will actually brake the machine too. So just bring it down to idle, won't stop it. And the Komatsu, you see there's a little yellow kind of button behind there. If you actually push this down and go all the way down, it'll actually engage a brake as well. Rarely do you need that. Normally a dozer, if you bring it down to idle, at least this size machine will just come to a stop on its own. So I'm gonna go ahead, my throttle's over here on the left. If you turn that up, see my engine go up, and then you can see my foot pedal. Again, if I go down with that, it'll bring my throttle up and down. So I'm gonna have my foot down on that when we're engaging these lock levers. So on these you can do either together, one at a time, doesn't matter. Once these are up, everything's live in the machine. So this is where you want to be ready to go right before you engage those. Now, my right hand again, blade control. If you look out in front of me here, if I pull back, raises the blade up, push forward, brings it down. Left, it'll tilt to the left. Right, tilts to the right. Bring it back. And then the dozer here has got a little trigger here that I pull with my thumb, a thumb toggle. That'll actually swing your blade left and right. Most dozer blades it's a 6-way pitch blade to do those 6. There are some others that will actually roll the blade and do some other things like that, but those 6 I had are probably the most common. And then there's other on the right joystick on the top is a float. I'll show you that later. That disengages the hydraulics, so it'll just float the blade if you're back dragging. And then there is some underneath here you can't really see for the automatics. This is not an intelligent machine. It's just a standard dozer. So, but if there's a way to turn on your automatics on the Komatsu machines. So that's our right. Again, left is our driving. So what I'm going to do here, I got my foot down the pedal. You always want to have your foot on the pedal before you start driving. You don't just want to shift it in and out of gear. So foot down, I go into forward gear, and if I slowly let my foot off that pedal, then I'm rolling. Once my foot's off that pedal, I'm managing all of the speed with those buttons. Again, each dozer's a little bit, at least manufacturer's a little bit different on how you adjust speed. Sometimes it's a thumb roller. Komatsu just has the up and down buttons. And I can go all the way up here. And then again, to steer it, if I just go left or right, you'll see it'll steer left or right. Now these machines will turn on a dime. If you actually hold this all the way over, if I go, you'll see my other track will actually start doing reverse. Ideally, you don't necessarily want to do that because you're just moving a lot of material right in that same spot. So you try and do a gradual, maintain forward motion. That way you're not sliding as much material into your tracks. So I come around there, controlling my speed with my left thumb, bringing it down, and then I'm going to stop. Now on this I'm just going to show you some very basic maneuvers, just trying to push some material. So once I come to a stop there, first thing I recommend before you do any grading pushing, ramping that speed all the way down. Speed is probably your biggest enemy when you're new to operating a dozer. It's just your brain can't catch up. So it's really, you're trying to kind of see the pants feeling. So you need to be going slow enough to be able to react. A lot of new people will try and do this really fast and they think they are going to conquer the world with it, but unfortunately because they can't catch up, they're doing this roller coaster and all these other things that just, honestly, it takes away the efficiency there. So speed's down. Now I'm going to drop my blade. This is where you're looking at your corners. See both sides. You see if one side's higher than the other, I'll make some little adjustments and be touching. And then I'm going to let my foot off. Now the key on pushing dirt with a dozer is just, it's slow, subtle little adjustments. You don't just want to push this thing all the way forward. You want to let the dozer do the work for you, so you're kind of driving in there. And I'm slowly going to start pushing into some material here. And this is where I'm looking in the horizon. You want to kind of feel the machine, which way it's tilting. Right now I can feel them a little bit tilted to the left, so I'm going to try and cut down to the right just a little bit more. But the key is always looking far enough out in your horizon while you're also looking at your blade tips. I'm starting to roll material up. Now we are at our Texas site. It's extremely muddy here, so this material is really tough to grade with because you'll see it kind of will stick to my blade. But I'm going nice and slow, making little adjustments. You almost can, if you're trying to go to max load, it'll actually stop the machine, which is fine. You'll just have to pull back a little bit on your blade to keep moving forward momentum. And then for this, I'm just going to be pulling this blade up now to kind of dump my material. Right there. Okay. Now there isn't a blade. Some manufacturers have like a blade shake. Sometimes I can actually see some material sticking. You either come up a little further. There's a place where you can kind of go back and forth with your blade to drop any material off. It's important to raise your blade all the way before you start backing up. Just because depending on the grade you're going over, you don't want to hit any material as you're backing up. So now I'm in reverse. Komatsu has a backup camera that automatically turns in there. Always good to be looking over your shoulder, and then most machines have a rear view camera. Rear view mirror above you as well. Now in reverse, my speeds on the Komatsu are up in the corner there. Generally recommend, this is a place you can make up some time. Just be careful what you're backing up over, and I'm going back to my starting point. We'll say I'll stop there, put it back into forward. Now if you do bump your speed up, you need to bump it back down. It won't auto do that, so then I'm bringing it back down. Doing it again. Now there are a few tricks here if you're trying to run a grade for basically a longer stretch. Sometimes having a little bit of an angle to that blade helps your process because it's making your tracks, you're cutting in at a different angle, but your tracks are going to run over it, so you're not going to do as much of a kind of roller coaster is what they'll call that, so that can help when you're trying to carry material for a longer distance. down. I'm going to cut in. I think the biggest thing with Dozer, with operating, is realize you're creating your road right in front of you. This is what, you know, it sounds pretty common now in basic sense that you're going to drive over what you're cutting there, but you'd be surprised how many people building something, they don't realize it. So if you're going up and down with that blade and making all those corrections, that's basically a stair step kind of. You're making an adjustment and your tracks are going to drive over that, which causes that when the tracks go up it picks the whole machine up. Right now you'll see I'm not really doing anything right now. I don't have my hands on the controls. This is really cutting in on its own. If I go down deeper here, you'll see it's going to stop my machine and just spin my tracks. I'm also rolling it right now to the left. If I straighten that back out, go back down. And then pushing this right up to the end. Again, really tough to show good grading here in Texas with this clay that's very wet. I'm gonna go over this. So I'm dumping this material off while I'm kind of coming forward here. I'll show you kind of back dragging a little bit. So blades up, I'm gonna be going over the edge here. Just understand where your kind of center point is on these machines. So I'm gonna kind of tip over this thing. As I come over, I can bump my speed a little bit. And we will back up and turn around, just a little bit of backfilling on it. So backfilling, and I didn't build much of a trench there, but you can see my cut up there. So it's important with backfilling, you're not trying to start a new trench, you're basically trying to aim your nose right into the center of that. So this is important. You're eventually going to be cutting the sides of it. I usually have my nose aiming towards that. And you can also angle that blade. I kind of call it, it's like windrowing with when you're doing snow plowing almost, where you're pulling the material in. You also don't want to start too far back. I'm only trying to take the material that I pushed up. So I'm going to come right back to the base, ramp my speed back down, come in here and start cutting into it. So as I'm driving, I'm trying to push forward on my right a little bit, just subtle little adjustments. It's important to keep your foot off that pedal initially while you're pushing. That is, so if I put my foot down, some I see newbies will do that to slow down. Well, you're taking that engine speed down, you're losing power to your hydraulics. The best way to manage your speed is your thumb controls, because you can still you want that engine at maximum RPMs, just so you're giving maximum power to your hydraulics. That's pulling those tracks along the ground there. Drive this up, push that through. Okay, back up here. Do one final. If I go over on the side, you kind of see I pushed an angle in there. This is where I've got my nose aiming down the center of the row that kind of in front of me. I'm going to start out on the right and then try and pull it in, slowing my speed down. But now as I'm going, you can see I'm looking at the blade tips. The reason I really like Komatsu dozers, you sit in the middle, more in the middle of the machine than others, so it's a lot easier to see your blade tips. I can bump my speed a little bit, but I'm trying to now pull. I'm aiming my nose. I'm starting to turn that to bring that into where I'm trying to fill. And as I'm straightening out here, I can pull my blade back to straight. Now you can do, I'm running out of material there. Again, very clay here. Sometimes you can track pack a little bit, so when I'm going, if I'm close to finish, just driving over this with your machine will kind of pack that down. I'm going to show you back dragging real quick on the other side. So let's say we kind of start with a grade here, but if you're in a relatively open area or just trying to knock down some ridges, there's a way you can basically float the blade. So if you set that blade in the ground, on the Komatsu, if I just hold my right thumb in here and kind of go forward with it, you'll see I'll get a float symbol on my display. You don't ever want to do this in forward gear. This is purely for back dragging. What that does, disengage your hydraulics for the up and down there. So now if I pull it in reverse, I can still go left and right with it, or I can pitch it, swing it. But now the blade, you'll see it's kind of going up and down its own. It's important to see where you're going. You can do this a little bit faster, but I'm watching kind of the material right there, and I'm kind of letting it smooth it out. Now at the end of this, though, you don't just want to if I were to pick my blade all the way up right now, I'm going to leave a big pile. So the key here is I'm going to take it out of float just by pulling back in my right, and I'm going to slowly manage that and let it come back on its own. And you see I got a nice smooth path in front of me. Again, there's a little bit, some people, operators say back dragging is taboo. I am not in that school. I think it's a great way to take out, it just smooths everything out. And for a newer operator, I am by no means really skilled in this. It does get, close to what you're looking for there. So now to park it, always important, set that blade on the ground. Some newbies will have their blade up in the air when they park it. Well, the problem is your step is on that blade, so you need to have that on the ground. Set it down, take your foot off, putting your safety lock levers down first, that way everything's disengaged, and finally you're turning that throttle down right there. After that, taking seatbelt off, shutting machine off, and stepping on out. 3 points of contact. Step right there. Awesome, so that is how to operate 101 360 style on the Komatsu D61 dozer. Thanks for tuning in. Check out our other how-to on our Learn playlist. Thanks everybody.